The forest held its breath as dawn cracked open the sky, spilling gold across the damp earth. Ethan's heart pounded louder than the crunch of leaves under his boots, his grip on Caleb's wrist unyielding as they ran. They weren't just running from the law, they were running from a world that refused to let them be. Ethan Carter, 22, had never imagined he'd be here, sprinting through the woods outside Willow Creek, Tennessee, with the boy he'd loved since he was 16. Caleb Monroe, with his quiet smile and poet's eyes, was everything Ethan wasn't. Soft where Ethan was sharp, hopeful where Ethan was cynical. They'd grown up in this small, church-heavy town, where whispers about those kinds could ruin lives faster than a wildfire. Caleb had always been careful, hiding his truth behind polite nods and Sunday hymns. Ethan, though, had never cared for pretense. He wore his defiance like the leather jacket he never took off, even now, as they fled through the trees. Last night had changed everything. Caleb's father, Pastor Monroe, had caught them together in the church basement, hands entwined, lips inches apart. It wasn't just a kiss that had been interrupted, it was a reckoning. The pastor's rage had been biblical, his threats of fixing Caleb through conversion camp chillingly precise. By midnight, the town sheriff, a loyal deacon, was knocking on Caleb's door with a warrant for disorderly conduct, a flimsy charge meant to cage him until the camp could break him. Ethan wouldn't let that happen. He'd seen what those places did, stories of kids who came back hollow, if they came back at all. So he devised a plan: get Caleb out of Willow Creek before dawn, across the state line to a friend's place in Kentucky where he could start over. Ethan had spent hours mapping the route, stealing keys to an old pickup, and packing a bag with Caleb's essentials. But the plan wasn't perfect. The sheriff's men were closing in, their radios crackling through the night. Ethan knew they'd be caught if they didn't move fast. "Keep up, Caleb," Ethan whispered, his voice rough but steady. Caleb's breath came in short gasps, his sneakers slipping on the wet ground. He wasn't built for this running, hiding, defying. But Ethan was, and he'd carry Caleb if he had to. They reached a clearing where the forest met a dirt road, the pickup waiting like a promise. Ethan shoved the keys into Caleb's trembling hands. "You drive. Head north. Don't stop until you hit the border. Marcus is waiting for you in Lexington." Caleb's blue eyes widened, glistening with unshed tears. "You're not coming with me." Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to God. He wanted to. But someone had to stay, to throw the sheriff off Caleb's trail. "I'll catch up," he lied, the words tasting like ash. "Go? Now?" Caleb hesitated, his hand lingering on Ethan's arm. "I can't leave you here." They won't." Ethan cut him off, his voice fierce. "You're the one they want. Get out, and I'll handle the rest." The distant wail of sirens sliced through the quiet, and Caleb flinched. Ethan pushed him toward the truck, his heart splintering. "Go, Caleb. Live." Caleb climbed into the driver's seat, his hands shaking as he turned the key. The engine roared to life, and for a moment, their eyes locked through the window. Caleb's lips parted, as if to say something: "I love you. Maybe. Or I'm sorry, but there was no time." Ethan stepped back, forcing a nod, and Caleb pressed the gas, the truck lurching forward into the dawn. Ethan stood there, alone, as the taillights vanished. He could still feel Caleb's warmth on his skin, the ghost of their last touch. Then he turned, walking back toward the town, toward the flashing lights and the chains he knew were waiting. He'd take Caleb's place, let them think he was the one who'd run. It was the only way to keep Caleb free. By the time the sheriff's men found him, Ethan was sitting on a fallen log, hands in his pockets, his face unreadable. Looking for someone? He asked, his voice dripping with defiance. Sheriff Harlan, a burly man with a cross pinned to his uniform, sneered. Where's the Monroe boy? Carter. Ethan shrugged, his eyes cold. Gone. You'll have to settle for me. They cuffed him without another word, the metal biting into his wrists. As they led him to the patrol car, Ethan didn't look back. He'd made his choice, and it was worth it. Caleb was safe. That was enough. But deep down, Ethan knew this wasn't the end. Willow Creek wasn't done with them, and neither was the fight for who they were allowed to love. The cell smelled of rust and despair. A damp concrete box in the basement of Willow Creek's sheriff station. Ethan sat on the edge of a metal cot, his wrists still raw from the cuffs, staring at the flickering bulb overhead. He hadn't spoken since they'd locked him in, not even when Sheriff Harlan demanded answers about Caleb's whereabouts. Outside, the town buzzed with gossip. By noon, whispers of Caleb's disappearance had spread from the church pews to the diner on Main Street. Ethan could imagine the stories, the pastor's son, corrupted by that Carter boy, running off into the night. They'd paint Ethan as the villain, the reckless troublemaker who'd dragged Caleb into sin. Fine. Let them. As long as Caleb was safe, Ethan could handle their hate. But the silence in the cell was heavy, broken only by the occasional drip of a leaky pipe. Ethan's mind wandered to the summer they'd met, when he was 16 and Caleb was 15. Two kids sneaking away to the riverbank to escape Willow Creek's suffocating judgment. Caleb had read poetry aloud, his voice soft as the water's flow, while Ethan pretended not to listen, stealing glances at the way the sunlight caught Caleb's curls. That was the summer Ethan realized he loved him not just as a friend, but in a way that made his chest ache. Now, that ache was all he had left. He pressed his palms to his eyes, trying to hold onto the memory of Caleb's face in the dawn light, the way he'd looked back before driving away. Ethan had lied to him, promising to follow, knowing he'd stay behind. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. The cell door clanged open, snapping Ethan back to the present. Deputy Ruiz, a wiry man with a nervous tic, stood there, holding a tray of stale bread and water. You gonna talk, Carter? He asked, his voice more curious than cruel. Ethan leaned back against the wall, his leather jacket creaking. Nothing to say. Ruiz sighed, setting the tray down. Pastor Monroe's been in the sheriff's office all morning, screaming about his son. Says you ruined him. Ethan's lips twitched, a bitter smile. Yeah. Tell him I'd do it again. Ruiz shook his head and left, the door locking behind him. Ethan didn't touch the food. His stomach was too knotted, his thoughts too loud. He wondered where Caleb was now, hopefully crossing the Kentucky border, safe with Marcus, a college friend who'd moved to Lexington and offered Caleb a couch. Marcus was one of the few who knew about them, who didn't flinch at the word boyfriend. Ethan trusted him to keep Caleb hidden. But Willow Creek wasn't letting go so easily. By evening, Sheriff Harlan returned, his face red with frustration. We know you helped him run. Carter, tell us where he is, and maybe we'll go easy on you. Ethan met his gaze, unflinching. You got me. Isn't that enough? Harlan slammed a fist against the bars. You think this is a game? That boy's father wants him back, and I'm not losing my job over some queer runaway. The word hit like a slap, but Ethan didn't flinch. He'd heard it before, thrown at him in school hallways, hissed by churchgoers when he walked by. Then lock me up for good, he said. I'm not telling you shit. Harlan stormed out, leaving Ethan alone again. But the sheriff's words lingered, stirring a fear Ethan hadn't let himself feel until now. What if they found Caleb? What if Marcus's place wasn't safe enough? Ethan had no way to warn him. No phone. No contact. All he could do was hope Caleb kept driving, kept hiding. As night fell, Ethan lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling. He thought of the first time he'd kissed Caleb, 2 years ago behind the old mill, both of them trembling with the weight of it. It had felt like freedom, like the world could be theirs if they were brave enough. Now, Ethan was in chains, and Caleb was out there alone. But Ethan didn't regret it. He'd do it all again every stolen moment, every risk for Caleb. The cell door opened again, but this time it wasn't Ruiz or Harlan. A woman stood there, her face half hidden in shadow. She was older, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a coat too big for her frame. "Ethan Carter?" she asked, her voice low. He sat up, wary. "Who's asking?" "Name's Lena. I'm a friend of Marcus's." She glanced down the hall, then stepped closer. "Caleb's safe. He made it to Lexington. But he's not staying quiet." Ethan's heart lurched. "What do you mean?" Lena's eyes softened, but her voice was urgent. "He's planning to come back for you. Says he won't let you take the fall alone." Ethan's breath caught in his throat, Lena's words echoing in the dim cell. Caleb, coming back. The thought was a blade, sharp with both relief and dread. He'd sacrificed everything to get Caleb out, and now the fool was planning to waltz back into Willow Creek's jaws. "No," Ethan said, his voice low and fierce. "He can't come back. They'll destroy him." Lena leaned against the bars, her expression unreadable. "Kid's stubborn. Says he loves you too much to let you rot here. Marcus tried to talk him out of it, but he's already planning to sneak back tonight." Ethan's hands clenched into fists, the raw skin on his wrists stinging. Caleb was safe free now. He was throwing it all away. For what? For him. Ethan didn't deserve that kind of loyalty, not after the lies he'd told to get Caleb on that truck. He stood, pacing the small cell, his boots scuffing the concrete. "You have to stop him, Lena. Tell Marcus to tie him down if he has to." Lena raised an eyebrow. "You think I came here just to deliver bad news? I'm here to help you, too. But you've got to trust me." Ethan stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing. "Why should I? I don't even know you." "Fair," Lena said, pulling a cigarette from her coat pocket but not lighting it. "I run a network for kids like you and Caleb, queer kids stuck in places like this. Marcus reached out when he heard about your stunt. I've got a lawyer friend who can make a case for you, but it'll take time. Until then, we need to keep Caleb from doing anything stupid." Ethan's shoulders sagged, the weight of the day crashing into him. A lawyer. A network. It sounded like hope, but hope was dangerous in a town like Willow Creek. "What do you need from me?" "Information," Lena said. "Tell me everything about the sheriff, the pastor, what they've got on you. And you need to stay strong in here. If Caleb comes back and you're broken, it'll kill him." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He told her everything: the church basement, the pastor's threats, the sheriff's flimsy warrant. Lena listened, her sharp eyes missing nothing. When he finished, she slipped a burner phone through the bars. "Hide this. If things go south, you call the number saved in it. That's Marcus. He'll know what to do." Ethan tucked the phone under the cot's thin mattress, his heart racing. "And Caleb?" "I'll handle him," Lena said. "But you need to be ready for what's coming. This town's got a mean streak, and they're not done with you." She was gone before Ethan could ask more. her footsteps fading down the hall. He sat back on the cot. The burner phone's weighed a small comfort. Caleb was out there, safe for now. But the idea of him returning filled Ethan with a mix of love and fury. Didn't Caleb understand? This was bigger than them. It was about surviving a world that wanted to erase them. The next morning, the cell door opened again. But it wasn't Lena. Sheriff Harlan stormed in, flanked by 2 deputies. His face was a storm cloud, his voice dripping with venom. "You're in deep now, Carter. Pastor Monroe's got the whole town riled up. They're calling for a public hearing tomorrow." Ethan's stomach dropped. A public hearing meant a spectacle, Willow Creek's way of shaming anyone who dared step out of line. "What's the charge?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. Harlan smirked. "Aiding a fugitive. For starters. We'll see what else we can pin on you." Ethan leaned back, forcing a grin he didn't feel. "Sounds like a party." The sheriff's smirk vanished. "Laugh now, boy. Tomorrow, you'll wish you'd talked." As Harlan left, Ethan's bravado faded. A hearing wasn't just about charges, it was a stage for Pastor Monroe to preach fire and brimstone, to rally the town against sinners like him. Ethan had seen it before, a girl last year, accused of indecency for kissing another girl, had been hounded until she left town. Ethan wasn't afraid of the cuffs or the cell, but the thought of Caleb seeing him paraded like that, broken and humiliated, was unbearable. He pulled out the burner phone, checking the signal. 1 bar. Enough to send a text to Marcus, "Keep Caleb away. Whatever it takes." He hit send, praying it would reach him in time. That night, Ethan barely slept, his dreams haunted by Caleb's face, those blue eyes, that soft smile, the way he'd whispered, "I love you," by the riverbank. When morning came, the deputies dragged him from the cell, his hands cuffed again. They led him to the town hall, where a crowd was already gathering, their faces a mix of curiosity and contempt. As Ethan stepped into the packed room, he saw Pastor Monroe at the front, his Bible raised like a weapon. But then, in the back, a flash of blonde curls caught his eye. Caleb. He was here. Ethan's heart stopped as he locked eyes with Caleb across the crowded town hall. Caleb stood at the back, half hidden in the shadows, his face pale but defiant. He wasn't supposed to be here. Ethan had traded his freedom to keep him away. And yet there he was, blue eyes burning with a reckless courage that made Ethan want to scream. The room buzzed with murmurs, the air thick with judgment. Pastor Monroe stood at the podium, his voice booming like thunder. "This boy," he said, pointing at Ethan, "has led my son astray, defying God's will and the laws of this town." The crowd nodded, some shouting amen, their faces twisted with righteous anger. Ethan barely heard them. His focus was on Caleb, who was edging closer to the front, his jaw set. Ethan shook his head subtly, a silent plea, "Get out. Don't do this." But Caleb's eyes held no retreat, only a fierce determination that mirrored Ethan's own. Sheriff Harlan stepped forward, holding up a paper. "Ethan Carter, you're charged with aiding a fugitive and obstructing justice. Do you deny helping Caleb Monroe flee?" Ethan's gaze flicked to Caleb, then back to Harlan. "I don't deny a thing," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. "Caleb's gone. That's all you need to know." The crowd erupted, their voices a wave of condemnation. Pastor Monroe slammed his Bible on the podium. "You've corrupted my son. You've damned him." Ethan's lips curled into a bitter smile. "If loving someone's a sin, then I'm guilty. But you're just scared of what you can't control." The pastor's face reddened, but before he could respond, a voice cut through the noise. Enough. Caleb stepped into the aisle, his hands clenched, his voice trembling but clear. The room fell silent, every eye on him. Ethan's stomach lurched. Caleb, don't. I'm not hiding anymore, Caleb said, his gaze locked on his father. I'm here, and I'm not ashamed of who I am or who I love. The crowd gasped, whispers rippling like wildfire. Pastor Monroe staggered, his hand clutching the podium. Caleb, you will not speak this way in God's house. This isn't God's house, Caleb shot back. It's yours. And you've used it to hurt people like me, like Ethan, for too long. Ethan's chest ached with pride and fear. Caleb was radiant, standing tall in a room that wanted to crush him. But he was also exposed, vulnerable to the town's wrath. Ethan strained against the cuffs, desperate to reach him, to pull him back to safety. Sheriff Harlan recovered first, his face hardening. Caleb Monroe, you're under arrest for disorderly conduct and evading custody. He motioned to the deputies, who started toward Caleb. No, Ethan shouted, lunging forward. A deputy shoved him back, but Caleb didn't flinch. He walked toward the front, hands raised, his eyes never leaving Ethan's. I'm not running anymore, Caleb said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. If you want to lock me up for loving him, go ahead. But I won't let Ethan take this alone. The deputies grabbed Caleb, cuffing his wrists as the crowd watched, some in shock, others in disgust. Ethan's vision blurred with tears he refused to let fall. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Caleb was supposed to be free. Not here. Not in chains beside him. As they were led out of the town hall, Ethan caught Caleb's eye. You idiot, he whispered, his voice breaking. Why'd you come back? Caleb's lips quirked into a small, sad smile. Because you're worth it. Outside, the morning air was sharp, the crowd's jeers following them to the patrol car. Ethan and Caleb were shoved into the back seat, their shoulders brushing. For a moment, it was just them, the world's noise fading. Ethan reached for Caleb's hand, their cuffed wrists making it awkward but not impossible. Their fingers intertwined, a silent vow. Back at the station, they were separated. Ethan returned to his cell and Caleb taken to another. The silence was worse now, knowing Caleb was so close yet out of reach. Ethan pulled out the burner phone, his hands shaking as he texted Marcus, Caleb's here. They got him. Help. Hours later, Lena appeared again, her face grim. You two are making my job harder than it needs to be, she said, slipping into the cell's shadows. But I've got news. My lawyer's working on a habeas corpus petition. If we can prove the charges are baseless, we might get you both out. Ethan's hope flickered, fragile but alive. And Caleb? He's holding up, Lena said. Told me to tell you he's not sorry. Kid's got guts. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. Get us out, Lena. Please. She left without another word, and Ethan lay back on the cot, staring at the ceiling. Caleb's face filled his mind, those blue eyes. That stubborn courage. They'd face this together, no matter what came next. The cell's cold seeped into Ethan's bones, but it was the thought of Caleb in another cell that kept him awake. He clutched the burner phone, checking it obsessively, though no reply from Marcus had come. Lena's promise of a lawyer felt like a lifeline, but time was slipping away, and Willow Creek's venom was growing. Morning brought a new visitor, Pastor Monroe. He stood outside Ethan's cell, his face a mask of controlled fury, his Bible clutched like a shield. You've destroyed my son, he said, his voice low and venomous. But I'll save him yet. Ethan sat up, his jaw tight. You don't get it, Do you? Caleb doesn't need saving from me. He needs saving from you. The pastor's eyes narrowed. You're a blight on this town. Carter. I've arranged for Caleb to be sent to a facility that will fix him. You won't see him again. Ethan's heart lurched, his hands gripping the cot's edge. You can't do that. He's an adult. Sheriff Harlan owes me favors, Monroe said, a cruel smile flickering. And this town trusts me. You're nothing but a troublemaker. Ethan lunged at the bars, his voice raw. Touch him, and You'll what? Monroe cut him off. You're in chains. Boy. You've lost. The pastor left, his words echoing like a death knell. Ethan's mind raced, panic clawing at him. Conversion camp. He'd heard the stories kids stripped of their identity, broken down until they conformed. He couldn't let that happen to Caleb. He texted Marcus again, his fingers shaking. They're sending Caleb to a camp. Stop them. Hours dragged by, each one heavier than the last. Ethan paced the cell, his thoughts a tangle of fear and fury. He remembered the night Caleb had first told him about his father's preaching, how it made him feel like a stranger in his own skin. Ethan had promised then to protect him, to be his shield. Now, he was failing. The cell door opened at dusk, and Deputy Ruiz appeared, his face uneasy. You've got a visitor. 5 minutes. To Ethan's shock, it was Caleb. He looked exhausted, his blonde curls matted, but his eyes still held that stubborn fire. The deputy stepped back, giving them space, and Ethan reached through the bars, their fingers brushing. You okay? Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. Caleb nodded, his grip tightening. I heard what my dad said. He's not giving up. Neither are we, Ethan said, forcing strength into his words. Lena's working on something. We just need to hold on. Caleb's eyes glistened. I'm scared, Ethan. Not of them, but of losing you. Ethan's chest ached. He wanted to pull Caleb close, to promise everything would be okay, but the bars kept them apart. You won't lose me, he said. I'm here, always. Ruiz cleared his throat, signaling time was up. Caleb leaned closer, his voice urgent. If they take me, don't give up. Find me. Ethan nodded, his throat too tight to speak. As Caleb was led away, Ethan memorized every detail: his walk, his voice, the way his hand felt in his. It was all he had to hold on to. That night, Lena returned, her face tense but hopeful. Good news and bad news, she said. Good news, my lawyer's got a hearing set for tomorrow. We're arguing the charges are unconstitutional, targeting you for your identities. Bad news, Harlan's pushing to move Caleb tonight. Ethan's blood ran cold. To the camp. Lena nodded. We've got people watching the station. If they try to move him, we'll know. But you need to be ready to testify tomorrow. Tell the truth, Ethan. All of it. He nodded, his resolve hardening. I'll do whatever it takes. Lena slipped him a piece of paper with a phone number. If things go wrong, call this. It's a journalist friend who's been digging into Willow Creek's sheriff department. She's got dirt on Harlan corruption, bribes. It might be our leverage. Ethan tucked the paper under the mattress with the phone. Thanks, Lena. Don't thank me yet, she said, her voice grim. This town's a viper's nest. Stay sharp. As she left, Ethan lay back, his mind racing. Tomorrow would be a battle not just for their freedom, but for their right to exist as they were. He thought of Caleb, alone in his cell, and whispered a promise into the dark. I'll find you, no matter what. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and heavy, the air thick with the threat of rain. Ethan was led into the town hall again, his hands cuffed, his leather jacket swapped for a wrinkled shirt the deputies had tossed him. The crowd was larger this time, their faces a mix of curiosity and hostility. Ethan scanned the room for Caleb, but he wasn't there. Panic gripped him had they already taken him. Lena's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Miriam, stood at the front, her briefcase open on a table. She'd met Ethan briefly that morning, her voice calm but firm. Tell the truth, no matter how ugly. We're fighting for both of you. Ethan trusted her, but the absence of Caleb made his hope feel fragile. Sheriff Harlan opened the hearing, his voice smug. Ethan Carter, you've admitted to aiding Caleb Monroe's escape. Now we have evidence of additional charges: conspiracy and public disturbance. Miriam stood, her tone cutting. Your evidence is a vendetta, Sheriff. These charges violate constitutional protections. Ethan and Caleb are being targeted for their identities, not their actions. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others scoffing. Pastor Monroe rose, his face a mask of righteous fury. This is about morality. My son has been led astray by this boy, and I demand he be returned to me for correction. Ethan's blood boiled. He stood, ignoring Miriam's warning glance. Correction? You mean breaking him until he hates himself? Caleb's stronger than you'll ever be. The room erupted, shouts drowning out Pastor Monroe's reply. The judge, an older man with tired eyes, banged his gavel. Order. Carter, sit down. Ethan sat, his heart pounding. Miriam leaned close, whispering, stick to the plan. We've got this. But then the doors swung open, and two deputies entered, dragging Caleb between them. His face was bruised, his sweater torn, but his eyes blazed with defiance. Ethan's chest tightened. Ed wanted to run to him, to shield him from the crowd's stares. Caleb Monroe, Harlan announced, was apprehended attempting to flee again. He'll be transferred to a correctional facility tonight. No. Ethan shouted, surging to his feet. The deputies grabbed him, but he didn't care. You can't do this. Caleb met his gaze, his voice steady despite the bruises. It's okay, Ethan. I'm not ashamed. The judge banged his gavel again, but Miriam was already on her feet. Your Honor, this is a clear violation of due process. These young men are being persecuted for their sexual orientation, not for any crime. I move to dismiss all charges and request an investigation into Sheriff Harlan's conduct. The crowd gasped, and Harlan's face reddened. You have no proof. Miriam held up a folder. I have sworn statements from former deputies about your abuse of power, Sheriff, and a journalist waiting outside to publish them. The room fell silent, the tension electric. Ethan's eyes locked on Caleb, who gave him a small nod, as if to say, we're in this together. For the first time, Ethan felt a spark of real hope. The judge adjourned the hearing for deliberation, and Ethan and Caleb were taken to a holding room together. The moment the door closed, Ethan pulled Caleb into his arms, careful of his bruises. You scared the hell out of me, he whispered. Caleb's laugh was shaky. I couldn't let you fight alone. They sat, hands clasped, as Miriam outlined the next steps. The journalist, Sarah, had evidence of Harlan's corruption bribes from local churches, including Pastor Monroe's, to target undesirables. If the judge ruled in their favor, the charges could be dropped, and Harlan might face investigation. But as night fell, word came that Harlan was pushing to move Caleb immediately. Ethan's heart sank. They're not waiting for the ruling, he told Miriam. They're taking him tonight. Miriam's face hardened. Then we act now. Lena's outside with a plan. They were led back to their cells, but Lena was waiting in the shadows. Harlan's moving Caleb in an hour. She whispered. I've got a car ready. If we can get you both out, you're gone for good. Ethan's pulse raced. How? Sarah's creating a distraction protesters outside the station. When they move Caleb, we'll intercept. But you need to be ready to run. Ethan nodded, his resolve steel. He'd failed to keep Caleb safe once. He wouldn't fail again. As the hour approached, Ethan heard shouts outside Sarah's protesters, demanding justice. The station was chaos. Deputies scrambling. Ethan gripped the burner phone, ready to move. The sheriff's station was a storm of noise protesters chanting outside, their voices a defiant roar against Willow Creek's small-minded cruelty. Ethan pressed himself against the cell bars, listening for any sign of Caleb's transfer. His heart pounded, every second stretching into eternity. Lena's plan was their last shot, and it had to work. The burner phone vibrated under the mattress. Ethan grabbed it, reading Marcus's text. They're moving Caleb now. Back exit. Be ready. He shoved the phone into his pocket, his body coiled with adrenaline. The protesters' shouts grew louder, tires screeching as deputies tried to control the crowd. This was it. Footsteps echoed down the hall, and Deputy Ruiz appeared, his face tense. Carter, you're being moved. Let's go. Ethan's stomach twisted. This wasn't part of the plan. Where to? Transport van, Ruiz said, unlocking the cell. Sheriff's orders. Ethan followed, his mind racing. If they were moving him, too, it could mean Harlan was trying to bury them both before the judge's ruling. As Ruiz led him through the station's back corridors, Ethan caught a glimpse of Caleb ahead, flanked by two deputies. Caleb's head was down, his hands cuffed, but he glanced back, their eyes meeting for a fleeting second. Ethan nodded, a silent promise, I'm with you. Outside, the air was thick with chaos. Protesters waved signs. Love is not a crime. Justice for Ethan and Caleb, while Sarah's voice boomed through a megaphone, accusing Harlan of corruption. The deputies hesitated, distracted, and Ethan saw their chance. Lena's car, a beat-up sedan, idled just beyond the station's fence. Now, Lena's voice hissed from the shadows. She darted forward, a tire iron in hand, and smashed the lock on the fence gate. The deputies shouted, but the crowd surged, blocking their path. Ethan didn't think, ran, grabbing Caleb's arm as they stumbled through the gap. Move, Lena yelled, shoving them toward the car. Caleb tripped, his cuffed hands slowing him, but Ethan pulled him up, their breaths ragged. They dove into the back seat as Lena floored the gas, the car lurching into the night. Shots rang out, warning shots. Ethan prayed, but Lena didn't slow. Stay down, she ordered, weaving through back roads. Ethan held Caleb close, their cuffed hands tangled, their hearts pounding in sync. Are you okay? Ethan whispered, his voice raw. Caleb nodded, his face pressed against Ethan's shoulder. I'm with you. That's enough. They drove for hours, the lights of Willow Creek fading into the distance. Lena explained the plan. Marcus had a safe house in Ohio, far from Harlan's reach. Miriam was pushing the judge to dismiss the charges, and Sarah's expose was already online, sparking outrage. Harlan's days were numbered. At the safe house, a small cabin tucked in the woods, Marcus greeted them, his face a mix of relief and worry. You too are trouble, he said, unlocking their cuffs. But you're safe now. Ethan and Caleb collapsed onto a couch, exhaustion crashing over them. For the first time in days, they were alone, no bars between them. Ethan cupped Caleb's face, his thumb brushing the bruise on his cheek. You shouldn't have come back, he said, his voice breaking. But I'm so damn glad you did. Caleb's eyes shone with tears. I couldn't lose you, Ethan. Not then. Not ever. They kissed, soft and desperate, the world falling away. It wasn't just love, it was survival. A promise forged in defiance of a town that tried to break them. They'd fought for this moment, and they'd fight for everyone after. Days later, word came from Miriam. The charges were dropped. Harlan was under investigation, and Pastor Monroe's influence was crumbling. Ethan and Caleb stayed in Ohio, building a life together quiet. But theirs. They'd never forget Willow Creek, the scars it left, or the love that carried them through. As dawn broke one morning, Ethan stood on the cabin's porch, Caleb's arms around him. The sky was gold, like the morning they'd run. But this time, they weren't running. They were free. We did it, Caleb whispered, his voice steady. Ethan smiled, his heart full. Yeah, we did. Their story wasn't just about escape, it was about choosing each other, no matter the cost. And in that choice, they found a future where love wasn't a crime, but a triumph.